What's up, everybody? Welcome into NBA DFS Live for what is today? Tuesday? Tuesday, January 12th. I don't even know what day it is anymore, to be honest with you. But welcome in, Ben and James today. James, we don't have your camera, but we got your Twitter name up there, so people can find you on Twitter now. So that is good.
Listen, it's one thing at a time. That's what we're working
Yeah,
towards.
yeah, one thing at a time. So we got your Twitter there. So welcome in, guys. Join in. James has questions pulled up on YouTube. So if you want to ask a question, throw the stream on YouTube. Search Karma Media
Corey,
Network on YouTube, and you'll find it right there.
Corey already said my favorite thing: 6 game slate. It's where the money's made. That's what I said the other day in chat, and
Yeah,
I love these. I love these size slates.
yeah. You and I both like these kind of mid-sized slates, so I think it's gonna be a fun night. Ownership's gonna be interesting. There's a lot of injuries to run through. I'm not gonna run through them all, but the big ones, obviously Kyrie's still out. No one. I don't know if people like don't know where he is, but it's like
So I saw
he's
today that he's now being like investigated to for being at a party without a mask on and stuff, and that so he's not expected back to the Nets anytime soon.
yeah, so that whole situation's going on. So he is out. The Heat and the 76ers both, they're playing each other tonight, weirdly enough, but they both have been hit with COVID stuff pretty hard. So um, the 76ers, it does look like they're getting Ben Simmons back. So they're going to have kind of Simmons and Embiid running the show, and then all those other cheap guys that we played. Last night, Tobias will still be out. And then on the Heat side, some of the names that really we care about, Bam, Jimmy Butler, Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, those guys are all out tonight. So there's a lot of value. So that game isn't on the FanDuel slate. It is on the DraftKings slate. Obviously, we go through DraftKings pricing on this, so we will be talking about the Heat guys, but that game is irrelevant for FanDuel since it's not on the slate. And DeMar DeRozan is out for the Spurs, and Kevin Love is still out for the Cavs. So as far as like stuff we're waiting on, there is like some big ones we're waiting on. Victor Oladipo is listed as questionable. You and I both assume he is sitting out because he rested the last time that they were on a back-to-back on the second end. So we're assuming he's out. And then we have Andre Drummond listed as questionable and John Wall listed as questionable. So those are like some bigger ones. Like if Wall was out, that would really bump Harden, I think. And if Drummond was out, we would get some even better value. I don't know. Would you play JaVale if Drummond's out? I'm assuming you would, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think he'd be a priority value on the slate for sure.
Yeah, especially because they're playing Utah, so they would kind of need somebody big
Yeah,
out there.
they would need his height. They would need his height for sure. They wouldn't be able to play as many like small ball Nance at the five lineups against Utah.
Yeah, so maybe I don't know. You and I were talking like that this slate could get kind of crazy. Maybe I actually hope Drummond sits, and then I can just play cheap JaVale and not have to worry about something else. But we're gonna start at point guard here. We're gonna go through the slate. Before we start, though, do you have any just thoughts on the slate in general before we hop into the positions here?
Obviously, sifting through some of these situations is going to be I don't want to call it difficult, but there's definitely some more volatile situations today. Like when we are looking at this Heat situation, obviously once we get a starting lineup, it'll make things a little bit clearer. But I think everyone's gonna grasp onto their value, and I think we could run into a situation like we had yesterday with the Sixers, where I found myself playing maybe too many of them just because they're rating so well and in everyone's projection models and stuff that maybe they're a little bit over owned and we should look to limit to, maybe like 2 Heat or something like that, not overexpose ourselves to the situation. Would be a piece of advice from me on this slate.
Yeah, because I know for a while I had like five guys from the Sixers in my lineup yesterday. I ended up just using Embiid, Danny Green. I think I used four. Yeah, I used
Or yeah,
four anyways. So
did you have Matthias and
yeah, I
Joe
had
probably as
Matthias and
well?
Joe. So I mean, they all did fine, other than Danny Green, who was predictably terrible.
Yeah,
Could have
I
called
mean
that one
he's
out.
so bad. He's so
But he was
bad.
so owned. There was some big chalk bombs yesterday. I mean, Danny Green, Cam Johnson, Cam Reddish, like some of these guys were super high owned. Like you and I both were super confused why Cam Johnson was so high owned on DraftKings, but
Yeah, Yeah, but
Um,
then I went ahead and played Danny Green, so it didn't even matter.
yeah. Well, a
So
lot, like, I don't know, 50% of teams had Danny Green and Cam Johnson, so it actually kind of
yeah,
worked out
crazy.
that you only had one of them. But
Yep.
all right, we'll head into tonight. So, the Heat guys are obviously going to be a large topic that we're talking about. So we'll kind of hold that off here because Tyler Hero is the point guard. I think you have to play Tyler Hero on this slate. You and I both hope that he kind of goes overlooked a little bit because he's 6,700. Like, he might not be as chalky as he normally would be, but I think he's one of the Heat players you have to play tonight. And I'm just not going to overthink that. But then we have a huge tier at point guard that I think are all really strong plays. You have Steph Curry, Malcolm Brogdon, DeJounte Murray, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Karis LeVert. I think all those guys are in play for me in all formats, and trying to pick between them is going to be a challenge on the slate. So, which do you prefer of that tier that I just named?
I think for me, number one is Karis LeVert. I mean, we look at these usage numbers, even with Durant back last game. I mean, he's been a standout player running. I mean, they've been starting him too, and then using him as the ball handler on the second unit. I mean, he got up to that like crazy high 30s usage rate when Durant was out. It ticked down a little bit last game, but I could see it getting back up into the 30% range, and maybe that slower game last game against Oklahoma City, and where Durant really took over, brings his ownership down a little bit. But I still think LeVert is a priority for me on this slate. And then from there, if I was ranking them, I think it would be Curry, DeJounte, and then Malcolm Brogdon for me. The only reason Brogdon is down at the end is because I do have interest in some other Pacers. And to not overexpose myself to that situation, I'm okay with getting onto DeJounte or Curry and leaving Brogdon down there. So that's the way I'm approaching point guard. Other than that, for tournaments, I really want to focus on those guys just because the ownership is going to be spread out. If you asked me to pick my favorite, maybe GPP target, maybe you could go cheap to someone like Aaron Holiday in the 3.3K range. He did come off the bench yesterday. Justin started over him, but if Aaron was back in the starting lineup, he could be a sneaky low-owned target for cheap.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I just made a Nets Nuggets stack like before we got on here, and I had Aaron Holiday in it. So I'm glad to hear you say that. But I agree. I think LeVert is such a good play. Like, just stacking him with Durant, I think, is really good. And like, Denver is a defense. Like, defensively, they're just not good as a team. And I think that, like, people, I don't know why they have this reputation as some great defensive team, but it's like stuck over the last few years. So I always like attacking them, and I would assume if most people play Durant and Cash, which I think they will, it might be unlikely that they play both of them. So I do like that call. Curry, I think, super interesting, man. Coming off that just bad game, I don't think people will want to play him. He's 9,800. Like I said, there's like what did he have, like 30, like 29 in the game log? And people are going to be interested in the Pacers, so just getting him on the opposite side of that for correlation, I think, definitely makes some sense.
Yeah, it's the perfect what we call the flop lag situation where everyone plays Curry after he comes off the 68-point game. They have the bad taste in their mouth and they don't want to go back to him. These are the situations that we should take advantage of. Curry, anytime he is under $10,000, same thing with Kevin Durant. They are going to be elite plays on every slate. DraftKings is just really, really slow to adjust their pricing this season. Those two specifically are really strong plays every single time they're on the slate.
Yep, I agree. I do want to point out Damian Dotson, I think, is interesting with Sexton out, but he's up to 5K on DraftKings, so not really getting him at the discount that we were last week. We'll move on to shooting guard. So I'll let you start out here. I don't know where you're looking at shooting guard. I do want to mention though that, like, I would become really interested in Harden if Wall sat. If we got that news.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Here's my problem with Harden is just the price tag. I feel like it's up there, and the Lakers are no schmucks defensively. I just don't know if Harden has that break the slate ceiling right now. I guess without Wall he could, but just some of these misprices on some of the under 10K stars makes me gravitate towards them and not as much Harden. I do agree he becomes an interesting target if Wall was to sit.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. It's just Wall like eats into him. We saw it in the preseason too. Like he eats into him usage wise so much, way more so than Russ was doing last year. Um, and then another question I want to ask you. So say like we have Simmons in, we have Embiid in. Like what are you doing with the rest of the 76ers? Because I don't think I'm interested in any of those other cheap guys that we played yesterday with Simmons back. Like I just think Simmons and Embiid are gonna do so much.
I do have some interest still in Dakota Mathias. I still think that he's going to be asked to play big minutes since they're still thin on the wing. I think Simmons cuts into Maxey a little bit more
Yeah.
than they would him. I think at shooting guard, the two plays for me would be Tyler Hero, who we already discussed, and then we kind of talked about Duncan Robinson before this and how me and you would like to prioritize Hero over Duncan Robinson. But I do still think Duncan Robinson is a strong play. I just don't think that we should be playing him at the expense of Tyler Hero, which I think we both agree on.
Yeah, completely agree. Prefer Harrow. Like I don't know, like the Heat are gonna be so chalk on DraftKings. I think like what I brought up to you before we started the stream. If there's one of these Heat guys, I'm fine just fading. It's Robinson only because he's gonna be so like contingent on him making threes. Whereas like Hero, I think is gonna contribute obviously across the board, and some of the bigs are gonna have to play a ton of minutes, and they're just better permanent producers. But like if Robinson comes out and his shots falling, like he's probably gonna destroy 4,800, and he's definitely gonna have ownership.
Yeah, I agree. He would definitely be someone I'd be worried about fading. Obviously, we'll see how the starting lineup for the Heat shakes out and stuff like that. I do expect Hero and Duncan Robinson to start though, so
Yep.
that is expected for them. I think what gets interesting is what they do in the front court, the Heat, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you have anyone else at shooting guard? I mean, this is a pretty watered down position. I will bring up Dennis Schroeder on DraftKings as point guard and shooting guard. When we finally get a slate where one of these two Lakers that are always listed as questionable and they both end up playing, when we finally get a slate where one of them sits, like Schroeder is definitely someone that I'm gonna want to late swap onto. But it's just something to monitor. I'm assuming LeBron and AD both play tonight, but they are like constantly listed as questionable.
Yeah, I agree. I think one name I'll throw in the mix. He's not exciting, and nobody wants to play him ever. But the scoring upside and potential is there, and it's Mr. Andrew Wiggins. Someone has to score on this Warriors team to complement Curry. And if we are interested in Pacers stuff and can't get all the way up to Curry, Wiggins is an interesting correlation play at a bad position of shooting guard.
Yeah, that's a good call. Shooting guard is just disgusting today, especially FanDuel where you got to play two of them. Like it's just the worst. But
I actually hadn't even clicked over to look over there. I
yeah,
just
I
did,
haven't
and
checked out.
there's
It's
one
just
one play.
yeah, like it's just
There's
horrible,
Levert,
man.
and then it's like you're either over, you're either you're either paying someone who's overpriced or Gary Harris, who neither of us ever want to play.
Yeah, it's horrible. So real quick, like before we move to small forward, give me your take. Bales and I talk about this sometimes. If you take Andrew Wiggins and you take him from the time that he was drafted by the Cavs till now, and he was
Yep.
putting 100% because we both agree. I don't know if you agree, but Bales and I both agree he just literally doesn't care about basketball at all. Um, so if you take him from the time he was drafted and he does care about basketball, he puts in max effort every day. Like where would he be in the NBA right now in terms of like would he be top 10, top 5 player? Because I definitely think he's obviously underperformed where he was
Yeah,
drafted. But
he's obviously underperformed. I mean, the skill set has always been there. I mean, he was a top recruit coming out of high school, top recruit coming out of college. I mean, he's had the spotlight on him for a very long time. I'm trying to think of a good comp to what his ceiling could be right now, and I don't know. Someone like Jimmy Butler comes to mind with him. Like if he could take over the game as a scorer, potentially a good wing defender with length. I don't know. But he obviously is not that player. So
yeah, how hilarious it is! Like you're saying, his ceiling is Jimmy Butler, who Jimmy Butler had like absolutely no attention from any college teams, and
Yeah,
Andrew
no,
Wiggins like number one pick in the
yep.
draft is crazy. But all right, we will move to small forward. I don't know, like, so you can use Karis LeVert as small forward on DraftKings if you want to, which I don't think you necessarily need to today, but you do have the option to do that. I'm not really interested in any of the higher price guys. I think you and I both are kind of gravitating to our boy Dougie McBuckets, Doug McDermott. He's really cheap, 3,900. We're assuming Depot sits. He's actually been playing pretty well recently, but I really like that price point. He's not going to be a secret. He'll definitely get some ownership, but I do think he's one of the better value plays on the slate.
Yeah, I agree. Played 30 minutes last night with Oladipo in the lineup. Shot lights out, 8 for 10, 3 for 5 from three. That's the kind of stuff you're going to get from McDermott. If he happens to walk into a steal or a block or happens to have some rebounds fall into his lap, I mean, he could have a true ceiling game. Him and Duncan Robinson are the exact type of guys that are you can almost like feel very comfortable fading them as chalk just because they are so shooting dependent. They're scary fades and they have incredible ceilings, but their floors are undeniably low in comparison to a lot of these other bigs that we play for value plays and stuff like that. So thinking in terms of gaining leverage on the field, if those two players are going to be two of the chalkiest players on the slate, all you need is a bad shooting night out of them, and they're not producing anything else for you to get you to where they need to be to win a tournament.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we would both choose McDermott over Robinson if you can play one though, right?
Yes, yeah,
Just
especially
because he's so much
Duncan.
cheaper.
Yeah, and Duncan's not small forward eligible, which I think is very important as well, because there are a lot of strong guard plays and not as many good value forwards. I mean, one or two of them, yeah, but specifically at small forward, the McDermott value there is really important. One guy I think might catch ownership just because he's cheap and people love to play him. I don't want to say people love to play him, but I feel like anytime he's priced where he is and he gets inserted in the starting lineup or something, people are very interested. And it's Andre Iguodala. That is chalk if he ends up getting there that I am 100% comfortable fading, and I don't see myself getting on unless it's like a last guy in situation. And I think there's some other guys in this range that I would prefer over him.
Yeah, Iggy is like the sixth or seventh like rated Heat player for me today. Like I just don't.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
really have much
no, it
interest in
just
him.
the
I do
only thing
think,
he has going for him is the position eligibility. That's
yeah,
really it. That's all he has going for him.
yeah. If projections like him a ton, which obviously, I mean, ours has him as like the second highest value. I'm looking at it right now. So second highest value rating at this position. If projections end up liking him and he is chalky, 100%, I'm cool just not even playing him. Um,
Agree.
no problems with that. Anyone in this mid tier you like before we move on? I think Jetty Osman's interesting. 6K is tough to stomach, but with Sexton out, like they're gonna need him offensively. The problem is that like this game, Cavs Jazz is like the grossest game of all time.
Yeah, I if I could just cross one game off the slate, it would be
It would
that
be that
game.
one. Yeah,
Even if we get Drummond out, I don't even know how appealing it is outside of McGee. Like
yeah.
that's how ugly this game is. I do have to give a shout out one guy who's just been balling out of control. I mean, he's been semi hot and cold, but especially with DeRozan missing time, it's got to be Keldon Johnson. I mean, he talk about a guy who's raised in price significantly, but he can still pay off this 6-2 price tag in a very good matchup against Oklahoma City. Keldon has been incredible to start the year. Love that Pop is trusting him in the starting lineup from day one and rolling with him. I think that the Spurs are really one young player away from creating something really special with DeJounte, Keldon, and another young superstar.
Yeah, I actually agree. Like I actually like the kind of core they've constructed with the younger players. Like I like Lonnie Walker a lot too. Like I think he
Yeah,
is super interesting. So I definitely like what they have going there. Um, but yeah, I agree. No Okoro tonight, right? Like there's too much value. Correct.
can't do it. Nope,
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah, I'll pass on that. Power forward, two really strong plays to start power forward off at the top tier. Durant, obviously, 9,400, and then Sabonis at 93. I think I want to get both of them into my cash game lineup. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, completely agree. They are building blocks on this slate. I think that the conversation just comes down to how comfortable do you feel about having Levert and Durant in the same lineup for cash. I think that it might be a situation that you want to get away from in tournaments, playing both of them, since they do cannibalize each other's usage a little bit. One angle that you could take is just going full on stars and scrubs build today with the Durant Levert and then running it back with a Jokic on the other side. I think that's a really interesting tournament angle. And just hope that game, I mean, we've seen it with the Nets this year, those 130 games just go absolutely nuclear. And anytime we can play Jokic, me and you are going to. But yeah, I agree. Durant and Sabonis in cash for me. The value plays are really strong at power forward as well. We have Precious Achua and Trey Lyles grading out really well. Me and you both think Achua is a building block on this slate. He's just completely underpriced at 3.1K, stepping into a massive role with all of the Heat COVID situation.
Yeah, I actually like Achua a lot. Like he's looked really good. He's been almost a point per minute player to start out, and I don't really think most people knew of him like coming into the year. At least in terms of him being a contributor right away on this team. But
He's actually been exactly a point per minute player this
yeah,
year,
yeah.
which has
So
been great.
and he's like looked good. Like if you just watch him too. Like I actually think he has some juice. I think he should be much more expensive than he is. So you definitely start plugging him in alongside. I like that he has center too. If you want to get weird, obviously Sabonis does as well. But yeah, I agree with what you said about running that back with Joker. We'll talk about him at center, but that actually was like kind of what my tournament lineup was looking like. I'm looking at the value column in our projections. Um, Achua is tied for first with Lamarcus Aldridge. I'm probably not playing Aldridge on this slate, but I do think that with DeRozan out, projections are gonna like him, and it could be someone that picks up a lot of ownership. So you're comfortable fading him, right? Because I don't think I'm gonna play him.
Who was that? Did you bring up? Sorry, I was reading chat.
Lamarcus Aldridge.
Aldridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aldridge is interesting. I do think that he's a good tournament play. I think it would depend on what ownership came in for him. Like if he was in like the low teens, I'd be interested. If you're telling me that he would be over 20%, I don't think that's someone that I would want to get in on in tournaments. Do you kind of feel that way too? That it kind of
Yeah.
depends on the ownership?
Yeah. No way I would play him as chalk. I'm not gonna play him regardless. But if I do think that he will get some ownership though, just because projection systems are gonna like him with the numbers with DeRozan off the floor. And because the other day, I don't remember what day that was. Was that Sunday? DeRozan was out too. Like Aldridge was popping in like anything that I was seeing, and
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
do think that people will want to play him today. I'll just pass. Larry Nance is someone that's interesting to me. Don't like the price on DK at 6,800, but if Drummond gets ruled out, like it's wheels up for Nance for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think I prefer playing the McGee value over Nance if Drummond does get ruled out. I don't. I'm still. That's still going to be a situation I have to work through if Durant is ruled out. I'm not sure what I would do with Nance then. Like, where does Nance fall into importance for you on this slate if Drummond was ruled out?
Yeah, he definitely gets a sizable bump, but you would have to really it would come down to roster construction, right? Because we can't take a chew out, and I still am playing Durant and Sabonis regardless. So that's two forwards, like and a center, or two forwards and utility, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just already taken those spots up. So you could put Nance in, but you're gonna have to sacrifice elsewhere. Like you'd have basically have to take Levert out or something like that. The rest of your lineup. If FanDuel, I haven't even looked. If FanDuel still has him at small forward, then you can just lock him in though.
For who? Let's see.
Because
Let's see.
Nance was small forward on FanDuel for most of the year, if I remember correctly.
Nope. They did their they shuffled him around. He is power
Okay.
forward now.
Yeah, they shuffled a bunch of people around a couple
Yeah,
of
it
days ago.
stinks
So
because power forward has awesome value on FanDuel. We
yeah,
could have really used another small
yeah, we
forward there.
could have used him at small forward today, but
That stinks. Well, one shout out before we move on, Corey in the chat. He must have been listening to spying in on me and you before we went live. He brought up how Duncan Robinson struggles to create his own shot. So without Dunn and Drodrich, who gets him his shot? Trying to convince myself to fade him. I mean, we were having this same exact conversation before we went live about Duncan Robinson and these shooters. I mean, one of the reasons that I liked Davis Bertans yesterday to bounce back is because Beal was back in the lineup and he was able to, you know, have someone on the floor who's going to dominate ball handling, dribble, drive, and penetrate the defense and kick to him in those corner threes that he loves. So I completely agree that that is a great reason to fade Duncan Robinson today is that he doesn't create his own shot. So shout out to Corey.
yep, sharp take in chat, and we were also laughing. If there's any Heat fans in chat, can you confirm this? There are Heat fans that I know that think Duncan Robinson's better than Tyler Hero, which I just think is a hilarious take.
Yeah,
And I
and
like
I
both
think
of them. I just think that's an awful take.
yeah, I think Duncan Robinson is definitely undervalued for what he does. Like I peg Duncan Robinson as like a top 5 shooter in the NBA, like without a doubt. Just catch and shoot shooters in the NBA. But when you can't create your own shot, when you can't do what Tyler Hero does, which is like the ability to create and take over a ball game, it really knocks you down a level, in my opinion.
I agree. Let's finish up at center here. So I'm looking at the value section in our projections portal. Lots of positive values. Top two, Domantas Sabonis and Kelly Olynyk. Obviously, Olynyk has power forward center on DK, but I think those are two really strong plays. If like Olynyk's good to go and he's playing, I really would like to play him if possible. I think that like this is someone that I play when the Heat are healthy sometimes, right? And now we get all these guys out. I do think 5,300 is a good price tag for him. And then you have Jokic, Embiid, and Drummond. Assuming he's in, all grayed out as positive values as well. What are you doing with Embiid? Like, some people might want to play him. I mean, he was on pace to just absolutely dominate
Yeah.
last night and just didn't get the minutes
I
because the
mean,
game
I
wasn't
think
close.
he had 39 at half,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
what he finished with, like
he
just
was
over 40,
burying
right?
anyone that did not play him.
Yeah, I mean, he was only 50% owned in a lot of contests too.
Yep,
So he was at 39 at half and only finished with 41.75. So
unbelievable.
I think he just ran out of steam there in the second half, and that's why they got steamrolled. But man, if that was a close game, it would have been ugly for the Embiid faders.
Yeah, I remember he did that one night, man, a couple years ago against the Lakers. He just
I do remember
dominated.
that. Yep.
Yeah, you know why? You know why I remember that so well? Anthony and I played a $2,000 tournament on FanDuel, and I had him beaten, and we took Embiid out last second and played Drummond, and Drummond scored like 25
So
FanDuel
what's funny is I
points.
was just about to bring up. I remember when Embiid was like 6K on FanDuel for like 2 months, and literally everyone just played him every single night. And same thing with Jokic when Jokic and Nurkic were on the team together, and finally they were starting Jokic and giving him more minutes. Like he was like 5K on FanDuel, and I said to myself, like I'm playing this guy until he's like a 9-10K player, and look at what he is today. He's a potential league MVP.
Yeah, it's hilarious. They did that with Tatum for a while too. His rookie year, he was really cheap. But
Yeah.
all right, so who do you like at center, like outside of the obvious one? Like Joker, I don't think we need to really talk about. It's self-explanatory.
No, I think
Sabonis, we covered.
Joker's perfect. Jokic is perfect in that kind of net stack that we're talking about. Like
Yep.
that game could explode and play really, really fast. Not a lot of defense at all. So I mean, I love it. Jokic against Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan defense. I mean, come on, sign me up.
Agree.
What do we do? What do we do about Drummond if he's in? We're not touching that against Gobert,
I
right?
no, I can't play him. Well, yeah, the matchup definitely isn't great. It's more of just that he's 200 cheaper than Sabonis, and we're
Yeah.
projecting Oladipo to sit. But I really haven't played a ton of Drummond this year, and he has buried me a couple times, man.
Yeah,
That
he's buried
Saturday
me a couple
against
times as well.
Milwaukee, I don't know if I just had like I didn't even look. It's just I just have this thing in my head where like he didn't play well against Milwaukee. I don't know. That could be completely false without me checking it. But he dominated on Saturday and completely buried me because I didn't play him.
Yeah, one guy who's going to pop and I think is a really interesting value. Me and you both agree that this is contingent on him being in the starting lineup is Myers Leonard. If Myers Leonard was in the starting lineup today, which I think they need his size against Embiid. Like I think he's going to start today, Ben. I really do think Myers Leonard is going to start against Embiid today, and he can stretch the floor. Like he can shoot threes. I don't know, for 3K, if he's starting, I think he's someone that I'm going to be playing. But what do you think?
We did just get an update on that Heat situation. So
look at that. He remains questionable.
Yeah, so Ira Winderman said Vincent and Olynyk cleared to play, so he will have required minimum to play tonight. Myers Leonard uncertain. So I don't know. Guess
Gotcha.
we'll see.
I think they'll miss his size. It almost makes me like Embiid a ton if Leonard was out, because if they have to start like a Kelly Olynyk at the 5 kind of lineup, that would be really interesting on both sides. I think Olynyk he's the perfect center that can give Embiid problems on the offensive end where he's able to stretch the floor and whatnot. And then, I mean, who's covering Embiid on this team if Myers Leonard isn't there? So that's definitely a situation to monitor. Obviously, hop in Discord with us. We'll be talking about these lineups and the impacts once they come available to us, and we'll dig through them. And our core plays will obviously be adjusted with the most up-to-date information all the way throughout the night.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know like we've done these streams for a long time now, and we always talk up the core plays. I mean, we've had a really good start to NBA collectively as a unit, I feel, with the core plays, but being in Discord this season is so valuable for casual players and for people that don't have time to sit around on their phone all night, because if you just turn the notifications on, if something crazy happens after lock and we adjust stuff, like we just tag everybody, but you don't have to worry about it. You can just see it. But I mean, this season especially, like there's tons of late swapping, tons of post lock injuries that have been popping up, and it's just gonna keep getting worse, I feel like. So being in Discord is definitely super valuable, even more so than in the
there's
past.
gonna be a night. There's gonna be a night where, just like you said, where we're going to be ahead of the curve on a LeBron or an AD sitting, and the industry is going to have them projected in, and we're going to have a lean to them being out or something like that, and we're going to leave that flexibility open to use late swap to capitalize on those situations, and when they happen, being able to take advantage and maximize your profit is so important. When you are ahead of the curve like that. Late swapping is one of the biggest edges left in DFS. We talk about it all the time in Discord and stuff. People ask like how can I be a better player? And it's keeping up on news and utilizing late swap as much as possible.
Completely agree. That about does it for the positions. You can give me a bold call for tonight, and then we can take any questions here before we head out.
Bold call. I haven't thought too much about it. I think one situation we didn't talk about, which could be very interesting, is if we do get the John Wall out news, James Harden is grading as a much better play. Have available to us to jam something like Harden and maybe an Anthony Davis into our lineup today in a really, really, Anthony Davis is an incredible matchup. They have nobody on that Houston team that can defend him. And him and LeBron were absolutely crushing the other night. They each had 30 each at halftime, and then just completely slowed down in the same matchup the other night. They ended up blowing out Houston. But if this game stays close, I could see both of them being like sub 10% owned and absolutely crushing the slate. Like, I mean, when we can get Anthony Davis under 10K against this Rockets team, I think that's something that we should be taking advantage of. He only played 30 minutes last game, put up 38 and a half fantasy points, but he was well on his way to a 50, 60 point game if that game stayed close. So I think that's an interesting situation to be invested in because of the slate context of having so much value. So I guess my bold call is Anthony Davis, James Harden stack wins it all.
Yeah, that's a good call. Lakers in particular just haven't been a team that I've looked at a lot, mainly because I play cash games. But yeah, that's actually a good call. I'm gonna go with Durant and LeVert combined for 80 real points. It's gonna be
Oh,
mine.
80 real points. That's a big one. Love that.
Yeah, but all right. Any last words here?
Nothing. Just as I always say, don't forget Nikolai Jokic MVP.
Yep, I'm with you on that one, man. I will fight that fight till the end. But
Yep. I feel
uh,
like every Tuesday we hop on here and he's on the slate and we
yeah,
talk about him. We say, "Oh, what a great player he is! What a great play he is!" And then me and you end up not playing him.
yeah,
So
we
it
were on
happens.
him. We were on him when he was like 2% owned, like
Yep.
those couple first slates of the year. But
Yep. Mm-hmm.
thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any other questions, you can hit us up in Discord. Other than that, good luck tonight.